Hello, welcome again to this devlog number 4. Yeah, we made it to number 4. Actually, number 5. I forgot. I lost track. Yeah, so you remember previously that we're trying to solve this annoying issue wherein the game just hangs indefinitely? We thought we fixed that, but it turned out that this bug is a legendary bug type Pokemon. The time it occurs now is less than before, but it's still annoying. So I've tried checking the memory in-game, since previously I've tried checking the CPU and memory usage via the MacBook Task Manager something, or the activity monitor, yeah. And to my surprise, when I ran the game, the memory usage keeps on increasing. I watched it for a few seconds but wasn't going down or resetting. I tried to make the profiler work again. This time I've used the existing module in the game called JProf. After a few fixes with the bash script and the game to detect if I'm running with prof lag, then I need to run the game using this custom bash function. Run the game for a while, close it, then the profile viewer opens. Oh look, cool, graphs and lines and whatever. Now look at this graph. What can you say about it? There's a pattern. The line goes up then down almost with the same interval. Now this is a lesson for you beginners out there, and even for non-beginners like me, dare I say, but forgot this whole thing. I'm so ashamed that I'm even mentioning this. This is a pattern common with languages like Lua that do GC or garbage collection. Now let's do a quick crash course on what is garbage collection. To put it simply, it's a memory management technique that handles allocation and cleanup for us so that we do not have to worry about it. Popular big languages that employ this include Java, C#, Go, and of course the one that we use, Lua. GC tracks and accumulates used memories or allocations. Then after a set interval or threshold, it cleans up everything unused. That's what the spikes and the sudden drop in the graph shows. So that sounds great, right? Well, that depends. For games that require a lot of fine controls over everything to make sure it gets the highest performance possible, they use manual memory management languages like C or C++, and almost all AAA games use that to make it work as smooth as possible, especially in consoles where there's I believe tight requirement and specifications for making games there. Yeah. So this again is a false lead. We still don't know why sometimes it hangs. Still, I'll take this as a win since profiling is a good thing to have. JProf is kind of old. It was released a long time ago. I'm looking forward to replacing it with this library called Applecake, which should be easy since Applecake supports JProf API as a compatible interface. Awesome. I really like when modern tools provide interface with old used tools, so they make the migration and the transition very simple. Now let's go to tutorial. If you watched the last devlog, and hopefully you've remembered that I promised quality improvements for this devlog, so here I'm proud to announce a big milestone. Just kidding. It's not just this cool dev tool where I can control the whole game speed using this aptly named speed multiplier variable. This game speed multiplier is necessary to test the secret announcement since I have to retest it multiple times, so increasing speed will give me faster feedback and iterations when testing it. Now, I meant to announce, drumroll please, tutorials. Yes, tutorials. I've been studying a little bit about good game designs, and I've realized as well with my previous game, shameless plug of Going Home Revisited, there's no actual tutorial. I received a lot of feedbacks about not knowing what to do at the start of the game. Also, it didn't help that at the start of the game, the whole game is pitch black because you have to turn on the flashlight, but I didn't convey or guide the player to do that, so they thought it's a bug. When they run the game, the sound, the lightning, the thunder is playing, they can hear everything, but it's pitch black, so yeah, they thought it's a bug. Instead of just showing press this or press that or showing a tutorial control screen at the start of the game, I've decided to incorporate that. The goal of the tutorial is not only to show the controls, but also to make the player immersed to the game as well as the mechanics or gameplay. For example, at the start of the scene, show the interact mechanic to the players by showing that key and make the players press that to proceed. Otherwise, our poor guy would be stuck in the car. Since it's very dark and we need the light, which is part of the core game gameplay, we will show a dialogue to the player where the interact key will be utilized as well. Now, we taught the players that interaction with items and dialogues require the interact key. Now we want to teach the players movement. It's kind of second nature to players that movements will be left or right, WSD, and so on, but this might seem ridiculous at first, but again, the purpose and intention is the core gameplay. We can do this by a dialogue telling them to go somewhere and the movement key should appear and so on. I'm not entirely sold to the idea of dialogues as the medium in instructing players. I'm aiming for something with diegesis, where the instructions, dialogues, and others are part of the world entirely and not something like a UI or HUD, since we're aiming for an atmospheric survival horror game. So we want to immerse the player and we don't want to take even a few seconds away from the immersion. As for the current show which key to press, good thing we have the show key system already implemented before. Now I just have to modify it for our needs and voila! Players can now see a floating key. But it's still plain and static. A good UX or user experience would be to get the players focused to that UI and show that. Other games do this by animating the key as being pressed down. For now, a good way to simulate that animation is to fake it via scale manipulation. So let's go to decals, but showing just the key seems off. Again, I'm aiming for diegesis. Then I remember this inspiration, which was a photo I've taken during a funeral visit. Nothing phone's essential AI added a description there. So I've asked ChatGPT for a shader that applies damage, applies blood, applies distort, applies scale and rotation to a hand texture. And here's how I implemented it.
This is the tutorial system and the step. If our step is the interact or we want to show the interact key. Before that, I've set this few parameters like the player's position, the colliders, which is basically in the car but is invisible, and we set this base X and Y coordinates, which like if this is the car somewhere here and then we go to the left, then down a little bit, then how many like hands to draw, then we calculate the gap between each axis, so we get something like a uniform movement. And then the starting rotation, which is like tilted right, and then the starting scale, and then I create a hand entity or hand decal for that many numbers, and then the X will be like the base from the base starting position, then the gap multiplied by the I. And then for the Y axis, I've added this little random thing. And then yeah, so we got also the decal shader, which I've added, and then here are the like the data that we send to the shaders, and then per iteration we randomly add a scale and then as well as the rotation. Then here's the like complex stuff, not really, just a little bit. So Flux is a twinning library, so we get a duration randomly, and then the delay, then the target opacity, and then we just lerp or ease through that, and then after we have a delay. And after that, if the hands entities, if the hand entity is not the like the last one, then we also apply the disappearing effect here. So we can use the existing system like the lerp or twin system that I did, but yeah, so for now let's just keep it this way.
But an E key on top of the hand looks off. An idea that popped into my mind is to engrave the key in the hand so the design is smoother and congruent in the sense. Now that we have somewhat a good way to show intent to the players, let's proceed with the tutorial. Sorry for locking you inside the car, Mr. Unnamed Character. As you can see here, I've also added some feedback to the players when they hold the required key. The decal and the key shows an effect. Now what about a single key press or a tap? A different effect should denote that. So after showing players the interact mechanic, we want to show them the walk mechanic. For this, let's ask the player to go to the left. Hey, why do you keep on going, Mr. Player? Let's try making him stop after we reach the target position. Still sliding. Let's see the player stop event. After some debugging, it turned out that I need to set to 0 the velocity in the X direction of the body component, since I've removed the can move component, which made the next player controller update to early exit, not finalizing the velocity. To fix it, we can 0 that in the player stop event, or we do that in the movement system, since that system should be responsible for that. Movement system has can walk component as requirement, so when we remove that component, this system won't process the player entity anymore. We just need to handle that removal of entity in the pool like so. And that fixes it. Finally, the player heard us shouting stop. This devlog has a lot of content already, and I don't want to spoil everything, so I'll cut this video for now. By the way, we just reached 500 and more subscribers. Thank you everyone for the support. Stay tuned and we'll give you more content in the future.